Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to IWSCC's podcast. My name is Deidre Guy, and I am the proud founder and president of the Inclusive Workplace and Supply Council of Canada. We work to support veteran and disabled-owned businesses here in Canada. So welcome to our podcast. Our show today is produced by Pod Supply. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see we have ASL interpretation, and that is provided by Maple Communications Canada, but with the sponsorship of RBC. So RBC is IWSCC's 2023 ASL leader for the year. So we're so thankful for them to help cover our ASL costs for the year. I'm super excited today to have Jolene MacDonald, Pamela Shainhouse, and Michelle AuCoin. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but you can correct me if it's not the case, Michelle. So these folks are fantastic humans that I have the privilege of knowing. They are certified suppliers with IWSCC. And so we're just here today to talk about women entrepreneurship. We're talking about entrepreneurship within the disability community and so much more. So thank you, all of you, for being here. If you could just take a moment, and we'll start with Jolene, to introduce yourself and just tell us what you do. This is an opportunity to pitch your business, so go for it.
No pressure, right, Deidre? Thank you so much. Very delighted to be here on somebody else's podcast and doing my own. My name is Jolene MacDonald. I'm the founder of Accessibrand. We are an accessibility-focused design marketing communications agency, which we are essentially a one-stop shop for all digital accessibility. And we are also a team of all people with lived disability experience.
Thank you, Jolene. All right, Pam.
Hi, good morning. Pleasure to meet you, Michelle. Jolene, I know, but I don't think I've had the privilege of meeting Michelle, so it's a privilege to meet you. I am Pam Shainhouse, and I am the president and founder of the Shainhouse Group, which is a division of Valley Style Incorporated. And the work that we do is we are specialists in the field of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, even though I'm hoping to change the word B in that into A for accessibility. And we work with companies to get them to understand the critical importance of integrating DEI and accessibility into their corporate culture.
Thank you, Pam. And Michelle.
Good morning, everyone. Great to meet all of you. I've met Deidre before, but great to meet the rest of you, and thank you for letting me be here. So I'm Michelle AuCoin. You said the French pronunciation correctly. So I'm not French. I'm married into French, but my husband is English.
AuCoin.
So,
thank you. I appreciate that.
So I'm based in Nova Scotia, but we see clients across Canada. And my service is Learnability Educational Solutions. And so we focus on the education side of things. So primarily, but not exclusively, we work with a lot of students, whether they're children or adults who have learning disabilities, attention deficit disorder, or fall under the category or that new umbrella, the term that we're all using a little more, and that's not neurodiversity. So we do everything from educational support, tutoring, transitioning, and then workplace education, workplace supports, helping people, for example, who have maybe learning disabilities try to adapt to the requirements of their job. So, and then one more very important thing that we do is we do a lot of speaking and mindset work around helping people understand what it is that individuals with disabilities might need on the job, or individuals who may present as having difficulties on the job that may need assistance without disclosing that they actually have a disability. So it's all from an education perspective. That's essentially what we do.
I love that you use the word mindset. I had someone correct me in a meeting about 3 months ago, and I'm really glad they did. I had used the word lens, looking at things with a different lens. And he said, lenses can be easily removed. It's mindset that's important. And I thought, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. So I do my best to stop using lens. Sometimes it is actually applicable, but for the most part, you should be using mindset. Okay, so Michelle AuCoin, if you can carry on and tell us, how long have you been doing this, and how did you get started with Learnability?
So this dates me. I've been doing it for 27, almost 28 years. My company has been in operation, very excited because our company has been in operation now for almost 18 years, and it continues to grow, which just continues to, point out the need for students and adults, who need supports, especially when we learn more about educational literacy and how those areas are dropping in terms of levels. So, it's so it's why I stay in the field. And I fell into it, to be perfectly honest. I did communications, master's of education, but I worked with a company in Halifax many years ago, and they were doing some very interesting remediation kinds of techniques with students who were diagnosed with learning disabilities. And I just knew, this is what I want to do. I want to work in a one-on-one capacity. I want to see kids who are struggling and adults who are struggling, within education or within the workplace, get the kinds of supports that they need. And I've just been there ever since. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Fantastic. Pam.
Yes, Deidre.
How long have you been doing what you do, and how did you get started?
Well, I've got a little bit more of a longer journey, and I want to congratulate you, Michelle. That is really pretty special, the work that you do. I'm in awe of people who can do that kind of work. The work that I do, I actually started in the field of professional fundraising years ago. And when I left the field, although I haven't left it because I'm still a president of a charity for young adults with cancer called Ali's Journey, the work that I had done, I'd raised about $45 million. But at that time, my daughter, who passed away in 2006, there was a void in the market, and we moved in the fashion market. So this person who didn't know a damn thing about how to do a fashion brand started a fashion brand for size diverse, with regard to having a brand that supports all people. And we were very successful. I had to put it on a back burner for now, which is why the Shainhouse Group is a division of this company. But the Shainhouse Group has only been around, we started it in this fabulous time pre-COVID, which is not the time to start for some people. If you're in a PPE world, that's a good time to start a company, but for people who are consultants, not so hot. So, so it's about 3 years, 4 years, but things have been quiet, but they're really getting a lot better now. I find that the world of DEI has been going up and down, just like the world of fashion, fashion size diversity. And we were the first ones to ever start a fashion brand like that. It was sustainable, and it was size diverse in Canada. So, amazing. It was, and we were the first to ever do Toronto Fashion Week as a show. And as it happens, here's the plug. We are on YouTube. If you want to see Ali Style in October 12th, you'll see the fashion show. We're still there.
Oh, yeah, fantastic.
It's very cool.
Jolene, let us share with us. I know, if I recall correctly, you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur as well. So how long have you been doing this work with Accessibrand, and what sort of led you to it?
That's funny you say serial entrepreneur. So yes, I have been self-employed pretty much for 20 years. This is my second full-time venture. I started out, I'm a graphic designer. I graduated in the late 90s. So there you go, at aging myself. But I have 3 kids, and when my youngest daughter was born, she's 12 this year, she was born with a rare form of dwarfism. And so my life became surrounded by, advocacy and for her education, for her physical needs. But I was in the middle of this sort of not-for-profit 24-hour thing called Create-a-thon. So I met a client who was in a wheelchair, and we were talking about, digital marketing and communications. And he was the one that said, do you know that, people with disabilities really don't have actual access to information, especially people who are blind, they can't use websites. And as a designer, and I've been in the field for a long time already at that point, probably 15 years, the light bulb went off and I went, oh, we have to do this. So with my other company, it was a design agency. I tried to push for, integrating accessibility, but clients didn't have to comply, quote unquote, by the law. So we were adding it on as a feature, and that gave people the choice to not have their materials and their designs accessible. So lo and behold, I got sick. I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos, which is connective tissue disorder, about 6 years ago. And my life kind of fell apart. I couldn't do all the things. I was too sick. I had 3 kids. And so I decided to leave. I partnered out. I tried working for someone else for a year, but it really wasn't my passion. And so I registered Accessibrand in about 2017, I think it was. And then just did freelance. And then when COVID hit, I was really excited to be accepted into Conestoga College's Venture Lab, and they helped me relaunch it in 2020. And that's how we became today. It was really a matter of trying to make creatives look at changing their processes. We can make everything accessible and inclusive if we do it while we're doing the process, rather than how it's done right now is we're trying to fix it later, and then it's an add-on and it's extra fees. And then I wanted to provide work opportunities for other people that needed flexible work that have been impacted by disability. So that's really how it all started.
So everything totally led by passion by all three of you. And frankly, that's kind of how it is with IWSCC. I just kind of stumbled across this need and went, okay, this is something that needs to be done. And I think that's, I think it's sort of a common thread with all entrepreneurs, and in particular, in my experience, with women entrepreneurs. So I congratulate you all for doing such amazing stuff, and your stick-to-itiveness, which is a word I love to use. I like that, where that bounce back ability, where things happen and still you're here and still you're working away. And I just think that's, the epitome of an entrepreneur. So
can I just put in one thing, Deidre? I think the reason that the three of us work in the way we're working is because as an entrepreneur, we get along with our bosses really, really well. They don't argue with us.
I always say when you work for yourself, you can fire yourself on Friday and hire yourself on Monday morning.
I get along with my boss. I've always worked for myself. And I think that is one thing that I so respect in the two of you. Or the three of you. Sorry, you're in there.
So I wanted to just take a moment to understand and hear from you what led you to join IWSCC, and what's your experience been like? What sort of keeps you here? So I know, Jolene, I think out of the three suppliers here, or three of you here, I think you were among the first to get certified with IWSCC, and then Pam and with Michelle being the most recent. But I'm just curious, and I think others might want to know and understand the thought process for what led you to this certification in IWSCC.
Did you want me to go first then, David?
Sure. Yeah.
So it was actually through someone else that I knew that had a disabled-owned business, but they were very small and part-time. And they said, they weren't in the capacity to do so, but I should look into it. So I did. And I reached out to you, and I'm like, this would be a great opportunity because of all the pieces that, IWSCC represents, and the fact that DE&I is so big a part of so many corporations. Why wouldn't I try? I had nothing to lose, and I've been really grateful. So I think it's 2 years now. I think so. 2.5 maybe. Yeah. And so what keeps you here after all that time? Oh, well, I'd like to say you, but it's, all of the people. I think the support has been amazing. Some of the great opportunities that I don't think I would have had, because when you're going through a lot of red tape with corporations and things like that, it's very difficult. With my other business, we did a lot of tenders, RFPs, and you're in such a big pool. This eliminates that. It narrowed out that pool a little bit more. So I think we get a few more opportunities that we may not have otherwise. So, everyone can turn a disability into a negative, but I turn them all into positives, because I think at the end of the day, we all benefit from it. And that's, I think, and the connections have just been awesome.
Beautiful. Michelle, as the newest.
I'm also relatively a new weebie as well. So, supplier diversity is kind of a new term to me. And, the more you become, you surround yourself with people who are in, this supplier diversity arena, the more you realize how important it is. And so when I discovered the IWSCC, were, a number of women in my life through Weebie who said, I think this might be for you. I couldn't agree more. And so there are kind of a few. I was thinking about this when I was reading the question last night, and I thought, okay, number one, I think as a business owner who has a disability, my disability is epilepsy, and it's a disability that is not discussed. In my experience, it isn't something that's discussed as much as some other disabilities. We call it a very hidden disability. I thought this is a great way for me to kind of advocate a little more for epilepsy. At the same time, it's a really great way for me to connect with people who have learning disabilities and ADHD, that kind of thing, so I can bring back information to the people that I work with, my students, my colleagues. And then at the same time, it gives me a position to be able to access services and colleagues and information who are in the same situation that I'm in, being an individual with a disability, running a business. And, I always say with a hidden disability, there are so many things that you have to do in order to be able to, I don't want to say survive it, but cope, that people don't realize that you do. That I do on a daily basis. I know my husband knows the things that I do on a daily basis to accommodate myself. But otherwise, friends and family who don't live with me don't necessarily know what I have to do. So when you get into something like this, where you're able to connect with other people who may have those similar experiences, man, it just kind of opens your mind, and you feel, I really, even only being involved, in a very short amount of time, just reading the literature and connecting even this week, it's been helpful. And again, just like Jolene said, putting ourselves in a position where we have that access, as far as supplier diversity is tremendous, I think.
Yeah, that's actually what led me to supplier diversity as in general. I worked for a women-owned company at the time, and I went into my very first event was a CAMSI matchmaking event. And I was just blown away by the network. I'm like, holy crap, how do you get to the purchasing decision makers from these huge corporations ordinarily? Like I'd be standing outside of a TD bank, knocking on the door. Like, how do you get to these people? So I was just blown away by that. So I totally agree. Pam, what led you to IWSCC? What keeps you here?
Well, you know what? As Jolene said, it's definitely you.
I was not fishing for this, by the way, with this question.
No doubt about it. Anyway, I too have an invisible disease. I was born with a bone disease, and it was diagnosed at the age of 5, which is a long time ago. We're hitting a big number this year, but whoa. Anyway, that's another story. And it was a disease that very few people knew about, including my parents. And so it was living with that. I had surgery every single year of my young life. But I kept it to myself a lot because it was invisible. I used it more of an albatross than I have as so much more now being a part of this organization. So people like us can work with others and understand the issues. For example, I was in a Indigo, and I walk with a walker most times, and my walker couldn't get through the tables. And I'm sitting here going, you know what? I bring a manager over, and what's he doing? He's pulling tables every place I want to go. I said, this is a little ridiculous. Because the truth of the matter, it happens in fashion, it happens everywhere. The truth of the matter is that my money looks exactly like an able-bodied person. It is no different. My ability to buy things, my ability to require things is no different than anybody else, and we should be treated accordingly. So that's why, I work with companies to show them how they're screwing up, where they think they're accessible.
Yeah.
And I can't even get into the building.
Really
the elevator's broken.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. So that actually leads me to our next question. Thank you, Pam. And it's something that just pisses me off in this industry, in the entrepreneurship ecosystem, and that is all the myths about people who have disabilities, not just entrepreneurs, but folks in general, those of us with disabilities. But I know that there are myths surrounding entrepreneurs with disabilities, which is one of the reasons why folks with disabilities don't necessarily disclose they have a disability when they're talking about their business world. It's not, as Jolene said, she's turned her disability into a positive, and not everybody is comfortable doing that because they don't have that opportunity. So what do you guys think? And this is just going to be more of like a what do you call it when you ask a lot of questions quickly? Rapid fire type of circumstance in this terms of your answers. But I would love to know What do you guys think about this sort of myth that we run into as an organization that people with disabilities and entrepreneurs with disabilities are unreliable? What are your first thoughts on that one?
BS. I said we're not going to swear, but I'll use the acronym.
Before I did.
I didn't say it. I think it's the stigma that society has placed on disability or people with disabilities, and it's such a bad thing. It's the social versus the medical model. It's the, use my daughter. Oh my God, she's doing this amazing stuff with her synchronized swimming. She's got all these gold medals. People are always going, oh, she's such an inspiration, and she's so courageous. And I looked at my daughter. She's almost 12. I said, do you think you're inspirational and courageous? She goes, no, I just want to swim. And she goes, courageous, yeah, because I got to go out there in a bathing suit in front of 500 people. So that's where, the inspiration porn and like the media, and we want to break those sort of stigmas. I think it's BS. Anyone can do anything if they're capable. Not everyone's suited to self-employment. It doesn't matter if you have a disability or not. But, there's opportunities out there, and, the statistics of people being disabled, underemployed is ridiculous because people have perceptions. And I had that perception before. I'm not going to lie. We all have these unconscious biases for all kinds of things. We just need to relearn it. Some people are too stubborn to do that. But the more we're loud and proud about it, the more we educate.
So, Michelle, I saw your face sort of nodding with Jolene's BS comment. Do you have something real quick you can share about how you feel about people with disabilities are unreliable?
Well,
entrepreneurs with disabilities.
I'll tell you who I always think of, and I don't know if people know it or not, and he's very honest and open about it. He writes about it, is Kevin O'Leary, because Kevin O'Leary has a learning disability. And if you read any of his so if you read his book, which I did, a really, really great book, and he talks about how it really kind of created ingenuity for him. And so if you want to look at somebody who started with a very small business, and can this individual take off and strive and create something, big and be motivated? I mean, he's the perfect example to me of, how powerful and how strong and how motivated and creative even individuals with disabilities are. And so I think more than anything else, honestly, when you see an entrepreneur, for example, who has a disability, I almost think it's important for people to understand that they may work a lot harder than other people do to be able to achieve what they've achieved. So you can say it's an inspiration. I agree with Jolene. You don't, I worked really hard to get where I am. It doesn't mean that I'm an inspiration, but it means that I did have to work hard. I had to accommodate. And I think that, I think people need to look at it differently and say it's so amazing, how much work people put into being an entrepreneur in the first place. So if you are an entrepreneur who has a disability and you've been successful, these are people who work very hard. So they're going to create a good product. They're going to create a good service because they've given it everything that they can.
I love it. Okay, Pam, how do you feel about entrepreneurs with disabilities can't communicate effectively as a myth?
Well, I think that is, again, we'll use Jolene's word, BS, because I think that you have to be able to, first of all, recognize, especially if you're a disabled entrepreneur, you have to applaud yourself to be able to realize inside that you are capable. It took me a long time. It took me my daughter to sit to pull me in front of a mirror to say, you're beautiful, you are smart, you are all these things, when all I did was take my disease and bring it down as who I was as an entrepreneur. I work for myself specifically because there are times that I have to rest. And it's a little difficult if you are somebody who works in a 9-to-5 or those type of jobs. When I was in fundraising, it was hard because I'd have to go and rest and people would not, why the hell is she lying down? Or why didn't she come in today? When it's invisible, they don't get it. I was actually, and this has nothing to do with this, I think I told you this, Deidre, was coming out of I was going into a store and I parked in a handicap spot and I didn't take my cane because I was feeling okay. And a man walks right by me and he says, "Oh, lady, must be a mental handicap, right?"
Like, what gives people the permission to even make a comment in the first place, right? It's that stigma.
It's that
Jolene,
stigma.
You are in the field of communication. How do you respond to the myth that people, and in our case, entrepreneurs with disabilities, won't be able to communicate effectively?
I think it's just that. It's a myth. I think people have this bias that they've been ingrained for so many years of, oh my God, I'm stuttering because there's just so many things that I want to pull out. Like, I've talked to so many people through our own podcast, and, back in the 60s and 70s and whatever, if you were born with a disability that you knew about, you were institutionalized. So that was society thinking. People look at my daughter because she has dwarfism, they automatically think she has a developmental disability. So they talk to her differently. It is the unconscious bias that's been underlying throughout our society for so many years. Like, even for myself, it took 2 years for me to even admit I had a disability because I thought it was such a bad thing. And it's not. It just is. It's just that. So I think where anyone might think that we're unreliable or something negative of the sort, do we work differently? Sure. You may not like how we do things differently. We try not to do rush jobs. We try not to, work weekends. A typical agency, it's burnout rate. We are all a team of people with disabilities, and the work still gets done. It just doesn't do it the way that they normally would do it. And I think that's another reason I'm self-employed. I do know that I likely have ADHD. My son was diagnosed, and through that process, we found out I was. And that's another reason I couldn't work for someone else. Like, these are the things. But I think that they're superpowers. This is what makes us, incredible entrepreneurs or
agreed.
Idea people. That's really, so no. I think
I love that, Jolene. I am going to see myself as a superpower.
I heard somewhere, I wish I could recall where, recently, at maybe a conference I was at or something, someone said, and I hope I get this correctly, but you are the only human on this planet qualified enough to be you. So it's important to celebrate that. No one else could do what you do. No one else can be you. So you're pretty unique, and you're the only one who can do it. And so that's pretty special. Michelle, I'm gonna combine the next two questions. I know that there are also perspectives out there that disabled-owned businesses don't provide as good a product as other non-disabled businesses, and that they're maybe too small to work with big businesses. All disabled-owned businesses are too small to do any work with big business. What would you say to those two perspectives? And I call them myths because I know.
I think you're as good as your team, for starters, and it's like anybody else, whether you have a disability or you don't have a disability. You surround yourself with a team of people. And I mean, initially I didn't have a team. There was me, and I got to the point like anyone else. I grew my business, and I have a team around me now that they compensate for the things that I don't do well. So for example, we teach math. I can't teach math, but I have an incredibly wonderful group of talented people who teach high school math, thankfully. But you know your own product, you know your own service, and when you're an entrepreneur and you are building a business, you decide, what is it that I'm going to be able to do well, and what do I need help with? And if you are, I don't care who you are, if you own a business and you can recognize, I'm not going to be able to do everything myself, I'm going to need advice, I'm going to need to look into things like, I know for me, I used BDC here, BDC, but I also used Coastal Business years ago, who gave me training on how to, develop, business plans and that kind of thing. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you have a disability or you don't have a disability. All of us as entrepreneurs, we're successful when we are honest about who we are and honest about what our business needs. Because, and the other side of that is there are so many people that have disabilities hidden disabilities. It's, and because, like I said, we talk about neurodiversity so much now, even with mental health issues, there's so many business owners now that are, coming out and stating that, my whole life I had mental health issues. Well, that's also a disability. And so how many people out there actually are running businesses that do have some form of a disability? I think far more than we think, and they just don't disclose. So I think that there are a lot of very successful businesses out there that are run by very talented entrepreneurs that potentially, they themselves have disabilities.
In our experience, folks don't necessarily, when we say a disabled entrepreneur, they don't go to invisible or mental health disabilities. They don't go there. And so it's funny because I'll be talking to people, a possible service provider for us with no concept that they might have a disability, and they don't have that either. But as we talk about what we do as an organization, they'll often say, well, it turns out that I have, and then, insert disability here. And then, we discover we're actually talking to somebody that could be certified with IWSCC. So, Jolene, Pam, real quick, do you have any thoughts on those two myths about disabled-owned businesses being too small to work with large businesses, or providing a poorer quality product or service? Pam, anything real quick?
Yeah, I have quite a bit about that, but I'll only take one or two points. I find that as a boutique firm, it is very difficult to get business from large corporations because they don't see you like they would as a McKinsey or any of these major things. But the difference about the kind of work that I do, and I would assume, or I don't like the word assume, but I would believe that the two of you provide the same kind of work, is that you're getting us to do that work. I am the one who comes in and works on the training. I'm the one who works on the policy. I don't find myself a junior and they do it, and then I show up and just present everybody else's work. And I find that with government or anything like that, I don't even bother looking anymore because I know for a fact they are not going to look at us, at me. They aren't. And that the amount of time that it took for me to put my name in for the government of Canada, I could have been trying to get other clients. It was impossible to get through all that rigmarole. So I do believe that that's what they think, and I think that it's up to us to make sure that they stop thinking that way. The truth of the matter is, guys, and let's be really honest, if somebody's going for a job, and there are two people that have the same qualifications, or very close to the same qualifications, but one is disabled and the other one, or my son calls me handy capable. One is disabled and the other one is not. Let's put a money bet on who's going to get this job. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to change. Just because somebody's in a wheelchair doesn't mean that they can't do the kind of work that a person who isn't in a wheelchair can't do.
Exactly. Yeah. Jolene, your thoughts?
Can you repeat the question for me again?
just your thoughts, and obviously don't share any if you don't want to, but on the myths, the stigma surrounding disabled-owned businesses being too small to work with large organizations, or providing a lesser quality product.
I think that happens with non-certified or non-disabled companies as well. Having been a partner in a company before that we were very small, we also went up against that. So I think it's the stigma of, just in general, that bigger corporations think that smaller ones can't handle things. I disagree. It really depends on what type of project it is and how. I think with our team, we've already been proving that we're capable of any other large agency, plus having the added benefit of, being accessible and inclusive. So you're going to garner more insight. The fact that we can look at it from the other mindset, not the lens, that we are people with lived experience. So all of a sudden, the 25% of Canada that identify as having a disability, it's extra income. So I would just say no, like it is a myth. It's absolutely that. So it's a matter of us trying to all collectively preach it louder and teach, right?
Yeah, educate. Speaking of which, Michelle, do you think that women and caregivers face unique challenges in the entrepreneurial community?
I see a change now. I know in our community here, I live in Cape Breton, so we have a woman mayor. We have our Chamber of Commerce is a woman. I will shamelessly say that this year, with our Chamber of Commerce Awards, the Business Person of the Year, it was always a female, a businesswoman of the year, businessman of the year, and they combined it this year to make Business Person of the Year, and I won. So,
yay!
So
Fantastic.
the first time they have that, a female wins, right? So yeah. I'm seeing a change. Now, if you talked to me 10 years ago, when I, as a business owner, it was different. It was, I mean, to be perfectly honest, you saw more happening for white men than you did, with other ethnicities, cultures, women, anybody of diversity. It was definitely in a different respect. And of course, even, as a business owner, one of the things I learned as my son is 23 now, but people expected that I could be there at a moment's notice because I had a business. And so I didn't have to work at a certain, like a 9 to 5, even though some days it's 9 to 9. But they just, you have flexibility and you can drop everything and you can do whatever because you're an entrepreneur. So it would feel like, for a while, like they don't take you as seriously being an entrepreneur and a mother. So the mother part was supposed to come before the entrepreneur part. So I always found that really interesting, but I like to think that, the community in the world is changing. Women I like to, it seems, like I said, here in our community, at least, that women are in better roles than they were in before. Because I can see it. I know what it used to be like. So there's definitely progress. We'll see if it sustains, but.
And so what about then as an entrepreneur, a woman, and having a disability? Does that add another layer of unique challenges, do you think?
Definitely. Because I know, I'll say this to you, as somebody who has a disability that's an at-risk disability, I would, for many years, it's only been the past few years that I've actually, told people that I have epilepsy. So there's lots of family and friends that knew my whole life. But I was very careful about who I told and even with my own business, because I was very afraid that people would say, I can't send my kids to her, or I don't want to have her, with my kids visiting her son because she could have a seizure. And it happened. It happened to me once with a client, and, a very supportive parent who just said, my child just understood now and sees what a seizure is. And, here's what it is.
Good attitude.
And interestingly enough, the child that I had a seizure in front of now works for us, which is very interesting. There's a very full circle thing there. But So when you're a mom and you're trying to balance this in your head, it'd be like, I had a seizure the day of my son's preschool graduation and never made it. So when you're trying to, and it's something in my head that has stayed with me forever, like you're trying to balance all of these things. It is, like I said, tremendously challenging because people don't know that this stuff is happening to you.
Exactly. And then I wonder if that whole layer, now my kids are older, 29 and 27, almost 30. How does that even happen? But it has anyway.
I win 46 and 40.
You do win, Pam.
I win.
But we also have that guilt, right? Even with older children, we have that kind of guilt that we're not doing enough for them. So, Pam, what about you? What are those unique challenges that you face as a woman entrepreneur and as a disabled entrepreneur? Again, a couple of them.
I think Michelle outlined it. I have a sister who has epilepsy, so I understand what you're going through. And I don't understand. I see it. I'm acknowledge it. Maybe that's the better word, because I sure as hell don't understand it. So I take that back. I apologize for that. But the truth is that I think women are always going to have these barriers, and I think that the disabled are always going to have these barriers. But the truth of but to me, as long as you believe in yourself and you believe in your own abilities to succeed, you will not care about the barriers. You will just blow through them. I have an arm that looks different. That's one of the symptoms of my disease. And I can't tell you what it was like to hide it all the time, because I didn't want anybody to see it. I always thought there would be a man who would never love me because I'm disabled. All of this, and I'm going to say bullshit, sorry, because I do not want to, because that's exactly what it is. But that was bullshit that was inside my brain. People who know me never even thought I had a disease, except my close friends. The people who meet me had no clue. Yeah. They don't see my elbow being, they have no clue. So I believe that, yes, it's more difficult as a woman, and I do see things happening, but I also see it taking 10 steps back. Like, I can give you a fashion example right now, is that we actually thought in Fashion Week, in all the Fashion Weeks from Paris, London, Milan, and New York, that the plus size model would be on the runway. Well, you know what? Out of 2,700 models, 31 were plus size. So steps back. And so now I'm pushing again. It's like I think you take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, and 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. But as a disabled woman, I am embracing who I am. I'm very open about who I am. And even when I'm presenting to potential clients, I tell them why they need to hire me, because I understand the world of accessibility better than hiring somebody else who doesn't get it. And I'm proud of myself when it comes to, I can't believe I'm saying this, because it's tough to be proud, and I apologize for interrupting here, but I'm proud of how much I have moved forward in this world.
Well, good for you. And I love to hear women say that about themselves, because we're not very good in many cases at touting our own horns. We've been told, especially women of a certain age, have been told most of our lives that, don't, pride goeth before a fall. Don't be too proud, don't blow your own horn. And so people don't do that. And I think as women, we should, as humans, we should. And as women, we definitely should, because it helps us on a daily basis to be able to boast. In one of my circles of friends, we call it crowing, so crowing about ourselves and what we've done. Jolene, what do you think about, as a caregiver, as a woman, a mother, caring for a child with a disability, and also an entrepreneur and having your own disability? What are those unique challenges you've discovered?
It's probably more difficult than anyone will ever face to have that much responsibility on you. And everyone keeps telling me, well, you need to find something for yourself, to find that joy when you're working all the time and you're stressed and you're worried about, your kids. I have 3 kids. They're, almost 12, almost 14 and 22. They all have their own things. It's not easy. I know people often say, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, I don't know either. I just do it. I'm rooted in entrepreneurship. I think, I had my first business card at 12. I sold flowers that anyone could have picked off the side of the road. And, I just did it. I made crafts. I love entrepreneurship. So when I got into design, I could be creative and a business, but it's difficult. And there's going to be those stigmas. And with my other business, we often had, sorry to the male population, a lot of white male clients that were higher up the totem, and not the totem, that's the wrong thing, that's up the ladders. It was a boys club, but we proved them wrong, and I wouldn't let them get to me. But it takes a lot of confidence to do that. And some days I'd be in tears, and some days I still am, because it's not easy. But I can't imagine doing a job that's not purposeful about creating a positive impact. So I will continue to push in however capacity that I have. But kudos to every female and woman entrepreneur out there, especially those that are moms, because it's difficult.
I agree with you. I think that is really important. When my daughter was ill, she was ill for 7 years, and I had to put my world on a back burner because my world was taking care of her. And I also have a son who has the same disease that I have. So it was very different. It was tough to see him diagnosed. You know, no matter whether something's genetic, you still blame yourself.
Of course.
You blame yourself.
Yeah.
How you gave it to him. And
I did that.
You know, it's just, I think that you said it really well, Jolene. We just do it. We just do it.
Yeah.
And we don't think about it. We just do it.
It has to be
melt into a puddle at the end of a Friday.
And we melt into a puddle. We absolutely do. But we don't, you know what? But we don't.
But as entrepreneurs, we can't do that because there's work on Saturday and maybe some on Sunday. Yeah. Sorry,
no,
Pam.
I'm getting very smart, and I am really giving myself a weekend. Good
for you. I get forced into it periodically with me, and I hear this passion with all of us here. Sometimes my work is the thing that's for me. You know, it's when I'm able to succeed and have things come together, because it's such a passion in my life and something I care so much about. It becomes something I did for myself. You know, so I know that it's not supposed to. The rules are not supposed to be that way. I should take a break.
It is not a massage, and it is not a
facial. Okay, last question, folks, and I've totally enjoyed this conversation. Pretend you're a genie. We have a genie here, and there's 3 wishes. You each get one. What would you want changed? And for the sake of time, let's try and keep it, just short answers. But what would you want changed in this world for folks with disabilities? With your one wish, what would you wish for? Jolene. Oh, well, whoever's ready.
Just equity. That people don't think you're different, and they assume that you can do everything just maybe a little bit differently. Do you know what I mean? Like, just equity, I think, is the big word for me.
Okay. Pam.
Acceptance is the word for me.
Okay.
I think that people just don't. I'm sorry. Never mind. One word's good. You got it.
Michelle.
So everything that everybody else said, but I'll just add comfort with disclosure, because I think so many people don't disclose. They're afraid of the outcome of disclosing. So that's always the one for me.
I think that's brilliant. Really, that's really, really smart.
Yeah. I had, we recorded a podcast yesterday with Jade Pichette from Pride at Work Canada, and they have such great things to say. And so I asked this question, and their answer was universal basic income. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Because many times we have answers that are less tangible. And in that was like, here's a tangible thing that can be done to support. And so the question wasn't specifically for folks with disabilities, although Jade lives with a disability and works in support of folks with disabilities. They also work with Pride at Work Canada. So it's that larger group. And so that was their answer, which I just thought was amazing. Thank you all so much for being here. I know we had a little struggle technologically to get going, but you know what? We persevered, as women do, as entrepreneurs do, as folks with disabilities do. So I really appreciate you all being here and taking the time and saying wonderful things about IWSCC. I appreciate that too. Does anyone have anything they want to say? Last words?
I want to thank you, because I think that the work that you're doing, the work that you and your team are doing. I am certified with We Connect and with We Be Canada. And the work that I'm getting, the support that I'm getting through IWSCC is superior. So I think that you've got a really great team, and I think they have a really great leader.
We have a fantastic team. We're small and lean, but we're
Did you hear my last line? Did you hear my last line?
What was it? Oh,
I just want to know if you heard the last line.
I did, and a great leader. Thank you, Pam. I will take that. In the interest of following my own advice, I will take that. Jolene or Michelle, anything last you want to say?
just thank you again, and just wonderful to meet all of you. Today was important.
Thank you. Yeah, for sure.
All right.
I just want to add one more thing. If there's anyone out there that is thinking about IWSCC, do it, because it's worth every penny.
Absolutely.
And support. So go become a diverse supplier.
Thank you.
And then you might meet 3 remarkable women who have great sense of humor.
Exactly. So, Jolene, that's going to be a clip now, right? That's one of the.
You'll do
it. All right. Thank you, everyone, again for joining us today. For more information about supplier diversity and inclusion, you can visit our website at IWSCC.ca. You can find our podcast on YouTube, listen in on your favorite podcast platform. We have so many cool and exciting things coming up in the next few months, so you'll want to follow us on social media as well. Thanks again to Pod Supply for producing our podcast, Maple Communications for doing our ASL, and again to RBC for being our ASL 2023 leader for the year. And thanks to everyone for being here. We'll see you next time.